Welcome to season 11 of the Parenting Aces podcast, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we have a very special guest returning to the pod, my son, Morgan. As those of you who have been following Parenting Aces for a while may already know, Morgan played junior tennis out of the Southern section. He grew up in Atlanta and went on to play college tennis for 2 years before leaving tennis altogether and finishing out his college degree and moving into the workforce. But recently, Morgan has become CEO of his own business, and I am really excited to have him share what he's doing with all of you. So without further ado, my son, Morgan Stone. Hey, Morgan, welcome back on the Parenting Aces podcast. It's been a couple years since you were last on, and I have to tell you, I still get comments on that podcast episode mostly from parents who talk about how much they appreciate the honesty that you brought to that episode. And you know how your grandma feels about it. She loved it too. But I'm excited to have you back on and talk about what's been going on the last couple of years, because you've had a lot of changes in your life.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Last conversation was definitely interesting. I'm glad it got a lot of hits and reactions, whether they were good or bad. You know, all interaction is good in my opinion. So.
Absolutely. So last time we spoke, you were working in marketing and kind of just getting your career off the ground, and you've made a lot of changes since that time. You were working in sales for a tech company, and now you are the CEO of your own business called Root Troop. So can you tell the Parenting Aces audience, what is Root Troop?
Yeah, so Root Troop is an NFT project, or we are a company that was funded by an NFT offering. And NFTs are non-fungible tokens, which are basically images on the blockchain that are linked to cryptocurrency. I'm not going to go into nitty-gritty detail, but basically NFTs provide undeniable proof of ownership and verifiable ownership on the blockchain, so that someone can say, this token is my token and nobody else's. There's a lot of use cases for NFTs. The way we are using them was 1, crowdfunding, 2, building a community around a central mission, and then 3, access through those tokens. So we're doing a lot of stuff with Root Troop. The big ticket item is that we are developing the first on-chain job marketplace, which we can get into if you want. But basically, the reason for that is in the Web3 space, and Web3 is kind of where all the crypto natives are, blockchain, NFTs. So if I'm referring to Web3 a lot, that's what happens. In Web3, there's not a lot of visibility to those opportunities right now on either side of the transaction for employers or employees. There's a lot of people who want to build, want to work in Web3. And on the flip side, there's a lot of employers that are looking to launch projects, launch companies in Web3, and neither of them know where to find each other. And so that's kind of what we are bridging the gap on, is developing a solution for these Web3 positions. Because right now you go on Indeed, you go on Glassdoor, and you can't find a Solidity developer who's going to generate a 10,000 PFP project for NFTs. You can't find a community manager for your Discord. There's all sorts of other positions that are very Web3 native that the main kind of entities in the job market are not covering. And so that's what we're here to do. We are bringing visibility to both sides for those opportunities. And yeah, that's the big ticket item. But we've got a lot of other stuff going on as well. We've got an educational platform called Kang Academy. And to back up a little bit, Root Troop is based around a super endangered species of animal called the tree kangaroo. So not just regular kangaroos, but tree kangaroos. There's about 2,500 left of them in the world. They're like these little 1 foot tall kangaroos. They look like kangaroos and they act like them, except that they live up in the canopies in the last protected cloud forest in the world, which is the Daintree rainforest in Australia. And so they live like 60 to 80 meters up at the very top of the canopy. They don't really have many predators, but they were hunted a lot. They in past years, and also deforestation has really wrecked their habitat. So they're near extinction. And so that's, we can get into why we chose them if you want. But that is part of our mission as well, is to drive awareness to the species and also help them out. So we donated around $30,000 to buy back a huge plot of land in their native habitat. And they are the theme of our tokens. So in Root Troop, there's 5,500 unique tokens. Each one represents, ownership and access to our project, our company. And each image is a different tree kangaroo with all sorts of different fun traits. Some of them are, family friendly, some are not, some are more catered to, the people in Web3. But yeah, it's basically, forming a community around a central goal, central mission, and then building together. So that's kind of the quick pitch, and happy to dive into anything you see fit.
Yeah, and I do want to dive into more of the detail, but before we do that, can you talk a little bit about how you transitioned from inside tech sales into this position of creating a company and being an employer yourself now?
Yeah. So it wasn't a direct transition from sales, as to NFT space. There was the overlap, which was music. I've been producing music for, I don't know, it's been like 5 or 6 years now. And I got up to a decent point in the music industry, where I was playing on lineups with, people I never thought I'd be playing on, collaborating with people I never thought I would collaborate with, and getting recognized. And I had a name for myself, but I wasn't huge. And if you know anything about the music industry, you know that it's nearly impossible to make a living unless you're one of those top guys who's headlining all the main festivals and traveling, playing every single weekend, or you just have such great music that you're getting 100 million streams on every single song, and that'll net you a pretty nice living. But if you're anything below that and you're not playing shows every weekend, you're really not making money from the music. And music was, and still is to an extent, one of my biggest passions. And so at the time, which was back in fall of 2020, I was seeing some colleagues just in the music industry, some peers, some people I looked up to as well, enter into the NFT space and start minting projects around their music. And they were making audio visuals. They were basically creating, 5,000 variations of their tracks and giving ownership to the people who bought them. And they were making a ridiculous amount of money, seemingly with not much effort, because they were already, building out these promo assets for their music. The audio visuals that you see on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, like those are already being created. They're putting them on the blockchain and selling them to their fans and making millions. It was insane. And so at that point, I've never denied the fact that I love money and I have big financial goals. And so I started studying the space and trying to figure out how I could integrate my music. And so I minted a couple audio visuals. I was attaching IP rights to those NFTs, and found no success. I sold maybe 3 or 4 of them, and probably made like $1,000 over the course of a couple months selling NFTs, but it wasn't sustainable and it was not worth the time that I was spending doing so. I really just found out there's not much of a market for people at my stature to come in and make a killing like that. But along the way, I really got wrapped into this other side of NFTs. So you can really break up the NFT space in 2 specific lanes, which is the one-on-one artist lane. You've got, the musicians, the true artists who are, creating, and, they've got a following based on their creations. And then you've got this PFP lane, which is more investment related. And so PFP means profile picture, for those who don't know. And what that entails is basically every NFT is profile picture worthy. So it's something that you can change your profile to, you can change your brand to, you can build a brand around this PFP. And so the thing that drives the PFP lane is traders. It's day traders, similar to stocks, except now they've got images and communities behind them and all of this crazy volatility that can drive, a mint that you purchased for, $10 or even zero, which we've seen recently, and skyrocket to, $10,000, $20,000 in a matter of hours. So with that, you can kind of split the PFP lane into two sides as well. So you got the two main lanes, which is artists, PFP, but then the PFP is split off into two. And with that, you've got really the traders, the degenerates who are just, throwing money, pumping up projects and not really caring about what they offer, what they look like, or who's behind them. It's a lot of anonymous founders, a lot of anonymous teams. And then the other side of it is kind of where we have found our stride, which is, building a company around these NFTs and using the NFTs as sort of a crowdfunding mechanism. And so with that, it differs from just standard crowdfunding, like Kickstarter, for instance, because you are developing this entire community of holders who believe in what you're building. They also build with you. Counter to Web 2, where it's a very top-down approach from the CEO giving orders to CTO, COO, CFO, and then those orders going down to managers, and then those orders going down to just kind of base level employees. It's very collaborative. Some people say it's bottom up. I say it's more horizontal, just because there's a lot of collaboration going on. And, at the end of the day, like, I'm still going to sign off on most of the things at hand, but people in the community, even who are just holders and, not on the staff, not on the team, they have a say. They run suggestions through our Discord, and we take them, we implement them if we see fit. We put out votes and let the community decide on things that we might not, necessarily feel is what we wanted to do. But if the majority thinks it is, then so be it. So yeah, that's kind of how we've found our success is really building with a community who believes in the mission of bringing more visibility to Web3 jobs and building this innovative tech, which is the first on-chain job marketplace. It does not exist anywhere.
How did you transition yourself from being somebody who worked for other people to now being at the top of the pyramid in your company and having to manage employees? How did you learn how to do that?
It's definitely a learning process. A lot of trial and tribulations, a lot of hiring the wrong people and then, finding out why it was the wrong fit, or, how I could have improved my process to vet people a little bit better, or, how I could have kept people more incentivized, or, there's a lot of different factors that really learned along the way. But in terms of the feeling of transitioning from working for other people to working for myself and now having my own staff, that's very natural for me. I think a big reason a lot of my past jobs didn't work out was because I just hated the fact that I was crushing it in my position and making other people millions when they were seemingly sitting on their asses. And I wasn't getting recognized for it. I was, getting strung along for promotions that I knew I deserved, and, being told to do things in a way that was very old fashioned and didn't make much sense to someone like me, who's always trying to find kind of the work smarter route, and kind of not cut corners, but, take the diagonal route as opposed to, going straight up for a mile and then left for a mile. So, it's very natural to me to be in this leadership position now. It's also made it way easier that I've built up this platform and this following that truly believes in what we're doing. And, I don't know, it's definitely been a learning process, but it feels natural in that sense. But to touch on your main question, which is like how to transition, I don't know. I haven't really jotted everything down along the way. It's just been kind of staying active, working 16, 18, 20-hour days and, being in communication with everybody, really learning about all the different processes, like working with legal, working with accounting, working, as the HR myself and hiring manager myself, and, setting up collabs and partnerships myself, and, also overseeing a dev team and learning about UX design. And it's just a lot of ramp up in various areas that I feel like people don't expect, but it's kind of necessary to be able to succeed as a founder.
For sure. You talk a little bit about your music, and your music's kind of been on hold for a bit, but you have an event coming up next week where your music's going to be back in play. Can you talk a little bit about this big conference that you're headed to?
Yeah. So I got invited to speak at NFT NYC, which is next week. Got my speaker spot like 2 months ago. And NFT NYC is the biggest NFT conference in the world. So I'll be hosting a panel there on how to make Web3 jobs accessible via NFTs. And, pulling up to NFT NYC for a week, I'm out in California, we wanted to throw an event. And I think that's another piece of what sets Web3 and, building a business on top of NFTs and a community full of holders apart from Web2 traditional brick and mortar businesses is even though we've got this central product that we're developing, we've also got a community to keep happy and engage. And with that, they've given us a lot of funding. And so we are able to use some of that funding to put on a crazy event. So we're collaborating with two of our partners, which are Sappy Seals and Llamaverse. And we're throwing a full-on club event with Drezzo headlining. Omnom is the second liner. And then I'm playing as well. So I'm playing a set. It'll be the first time anybody in my community has seen me play. First time I'm meeting anybody in my community anyway, but I haven't played a set since 2019, which was actually ironically a set with Drezzo, who, just to diverge a little bit, Drezzo was always my production DJ idol, like by far over anybody. And so got to play a set with him back in 2019. I was over the moon, hadn't played a set since then. And now he's actually a big holder of Root Root. He has like 20 roots. And so when we started to put together this event, our partners were kind of taking care of the venue and the time and kind of the logistics. And they're like, well, you're in the industry, you take care of the talent. So I hit up Drezzo and was like, yo, would you want to come? It's like, hell yeah, let's do it. So we got in touch with his management. We got in touch with Omnom's management. And of course, I've been prepping the set to play as well. And we also just, well, we haven't announced, but kind of announced that there's a huge secret guest that's coming and closing out the night for us now, which is insane because there's some very interesting ties to this one as well. And he's like, huge festival headliner. So it's going to be crazy. It'll be like a legit club event. It's at one of the best, I think it is the top rated rooftop club in New York City. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It's so cool. I wish I could be there, but probably not your demographic.
Yeah. We'll see people of all ages. I mean, we've got people your age and, moms on our team. So, that's the other great thing about Web3. It's like, you really have a diverse crowd, not just in the team, but in the community. So it's not, even if they don't really care about jobs, they might care about the conservation efforts that we're doing for tree kangaroos. Even if they don't care about that, they might care about the event we're throwing. Even if they don't care about that, they might care about the educational opportunities we're providing. And so with that, we're able to garner like a very wide range of demographic for our community. So
that's very cool. And can you talk a little bit about going back to the conservation efforts? Because when Root Troop first started, really kind of the one underlying piece of it was this conservation piece. And, trying to find, as you mentioned, an animal that was endangered and that wasn't all over NFTs. You didn't want to do something copying another project or derive from another project. You wanted to do something unique. And so learning about tree kangaroos, what made you kind of fall in love with them as a species, and how have y'all given back to the tree kangaroos?
Yeah.
You mentioned the donation, but I want you to really kind of dive into that a little more.
Sure. The process of how we actually chose tree kangaroos was pretty methodical. We started off, this was like myself and, former COO on the team, back before anybody knew what the project was, what the name was, the animal roadmap, any of it was. We actually just launched a Discord for a community because we had built up a community in another project. And so we had like 2,000 people in this Discord. And so me and the former COO we got together and we're like, okay, now we've got this community, we've got some responsibility, we've got a project to build. What the hell is it going to be? And so our expertise was in the PFP side of things, the profile picture lane. We're like, okay, let's build out a PFP project. So the first criteria that we wanted to hit was it cannot be a derivative of any other project out there. It cannot be the same animal as any other project out there. It can't be an ape like Bored Ape Club. It can't be a seal like Sappy Seals. No llamas like Llamaverse. Nothing. It has to be unique. And so, okay, that doesn't really narrow it down because the NFT space is so new. And ironically, there's a big lack of creativity when people are choosing what their theme of their project is going to be. So there are 100 200 different ape projects. There are 50 different seal projects. And so, well, maybe not seals, sorry Wab if you're listening to this, but so that was kind of the first hoop we wanted to jump through. The second one was, okay, what is the second biggest NFT market right now outside of the US? And this was back in October before there was a big anime boom, and therefore, bringing in a lot of the Asian culture and community. And so the second biggest community at that time was out in Oceania, which is Australia and New Zealand. And so, okay, we've got, an animal that hasn't been done, something in Australia or New Zealand. Still doesn't really narrow it down. At that point, we knew we wanted to have some piece of philanthropy baked into the project. And so we were like, okay, let's find something that's endangered or, on that critical, species list. So, again, we've got, hasn't been done in Australia, New Zealand, endangered. Still doesn't narrow it down that much because the wildlife there is abundant and a lot of it is, very endangered. So we were, at that point, we spent like 2 or 3 days just watching basically every documentary on animals, looking up endangered species lists on Google, reading all sorts of articles. And we came across the tree kangaroo. And, I actually came across it and I was like, oh, I've never heard of this thing. Is it real? Like, is this an actual species, a tree kangaroo, like a mini kangaroo that lives up in the canopy? And so I brought that to my COO and I was like, have you ever heard of this? And he's like, no. Like, what is that? Are you pulling my leg? Is that real? I was like, it's real. I think this is the one. There's only 2,500 left in the world. Neither you or I have ever heard of it. And we've spent a lot of time looking at nature documentaries, like not just in this scenario, but, just for our own enjoyment outside of it. And so at that point, we were like, okay, we asked a couple more people, like, hey, have you ever heard of tree kangaroo? No, what's that? We asked a couple Australian, New Zealanders, hey, have you ever heard of tree kangaroo? No, what the hell is a tree kangaroo? It's like, yeah, that's the one right there. And so, ironically, we were kind of known in our last project for leading the community in kind of like a militarized fashion, bringing them on Twitter raids and, really blowing up our engagement and expanding our reach. And so, we were like, okay, we've got tree kangaroos, but now what are we going to call the project? And a group of tree kangaroos is called a troop. So, Root Troop.
Love it. Love it.
And
okay. So dig into, how you chose the organization that y'all made the donation to and what they were able to do.
Yeah, so there are a couple organizations that work with tree kangaroos. And like I said, they're in the last protected cloud forest, which is the Daintree rainforest out in Australia. And so then there's also, like, if you're listening and know about tree kangaroos, there's also a couple in Indonesia, but very kind of minimal. So there are a couple organizations we reached out to and we really drilled in. We started that communication in mid-October when the Discord launched. And for context, we didn't actually launch the project until January. We didn't make a donation until March. So, we started this process very early to research, who these organizations were, what exactly they were doing for tree kangaroos, where exactly our money would go. And there were a lot of people who were just, kind of taking care of hurt tree kangaroos and, helping them recover before putting them back out in the wild. And, while that's all fine and dandy, and we might end up, donating to some of those as well, we found an organization who actually works directly with the Daintree rainforest to buy back some of the land that has been deemed public and, been deemed able to build on top of and build infrastructure on. And so there's a bunch of different plots of land in the Daintree, and they have already bought back, I think it was like 5 or 6 different plots of land, but there was no connected kind of tunnel, we'll call it, passageway of land that they had bought back. So, they had bought, plot 1 over here, plot 3 over here, plot 7 over here, a couple different plots everywhere. And so we were actually able to come in and purchase the biggest plot of land in the Daintree that was unprotected, that connected several different plots that they had already bought back. And so now, for the first time in history, tree kangaroos have a safe passage all the way from the lowest point of elevation in the Daintree up to the highest point of elevation in the Daintree, which is really important because, one, for obvious reasons, they can, roam and spread and, reproduce. But the biggest is that joeys, which are baby tree kangaroos, at a certain point, once they come out of the pouch, they go out on their own to kind of get their own territory and mark their own land and start their own kind of troop, right? And so now there's a safe passage. They don't have to worry about deforestation. They don't have to worry about human intervention, and real feel good. So
yeah. It is real feel good. And the organization that y'all donated to made a really cool video, and we'll have that video link in the show notes on parentingaces.com. So hopefully those of you listening or watching will click on that link and you can see tree kangaroos in action and see what Root Troop has accomplished so far, which is, as your mom, I'm super proud of that piece of it. I'm proud of a lot of it, but I think that, the fact that you felt kind of driven to have that philanthropic piece tied into your project is really commendable and very, very cool.
Thanks.
So what's next for Root Troop? Where do y'all go from here? When is this job marketplace coming, and how do you continue to build this project?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming up. So NFT NYC, which we just touched on, is next week. I leave on Sunday. I'm speaking sometime between the 21st and 23rd. They still haven't given me a slot. We're hosting that event, but basically I'm going to be in pitch mode that entire time. And so before I dive into that, to give some context, while we are developing the first on-chain job marketplace, we have built out a fully fleshed out bounty hub, which is essentially a place where employers can come to post jobs, and all of our holders and our partner community holders get access to those jobs, exclusive access. And so while we haven't launched the on-chain job market yet, this bounty hub has posted, I think it's like 325 jobs now, and has placed around 75 people successfully in Web3 roles. And someone, even got a 30 Ethereum Solidity debt bounty out of it, which at the time Ethereum was like $3,200. They got like a 100K job out of it. And so we haven't really been able to figure out the exact amount of revenue that has been produced from it. We haven't monetized it at all yet. This is just kind of like proof of concept, MVP, to get our name out there and establish ourselves. But the proof of concept is there and it works. And, there's demand on both sides for something like this. So that is just a temporary solution, though. It's going to be obsolete once we launch the job market. We'll just be completely wiped. And the job market will be for everybody. It's not going to be gated to our holders and partner community holders. This is going to be a full-scale solution that, in our perspective, can take over the entire job market space, not just Web3 jobs. And so while we have been talking about that ever since October and really heavily since January, nobody's seen it at all. And so next week at NFT NYC is going to be the first time I get to present the prototypes for it. We've been working with an insane UX design team out of France and Belgium, and they've just absolutely crushed it. So, really excited to be able to launch that. And it's not an alpha rollout yet. That probably won't come until mid to late August, but it will be the first glance at it and kind of the solidifying moment where everybody's like, damn, this is real, and this is a needed piece of innovative technology. So I'm really excited to be in New York pitching that to everybody, rocking up with the iPad and showing anybody who will talk to me about it. And then past that, we just got more community building, more tools coming out to engage, more partnerships. That's the other thing about Web3 is, we're really able to bring in utility from other projects, other companies that are focusing on other things. And we've been recognized by some really key players in the space, and everybody wants access to the Bounty Hub. Everybody wants the special perks that'll come with the marketplace. And so with that, we've been offered, some insane partnerships and been able to drive a lot of value back to our holders. So past that, we're going to expand on the educational platform, which is King Academy. This is kind of first leap. We are going to be dropping an internship program in a couple weeks here, where basically our senior moderator team will be taking some people from the community who have desire to get moderator experience, and we'll be placing them with other projects for 2 or 4 week periods where they can get that experience. And then our senior mods will recommend, based on how that went, who should stay on the team and, solidify themselves with a paid role on that team. So that's coming soon. Later this year, we'll be launching another collection, which will be voxels. If you don't know what voxels are, they are compatible with the metaverse. So we'll be building out a metaverse for Root Troop as well. And that metaverse will include things like branded session rooms, interview rooms, company headquarters, where these big projects, big companies like Bored Ape Yacht Club, CryptoPunks, they can come in and purchase, spots of land in Root Troop Metaverse to hold all of their interviews, all of their meetings, anything they want there, and brand it themselves. On top of that, that's just going to be a section of it, but there will be all these P2E mechanics built in as well. And if you don't know what P2E is, P2E is play to earn. So there will be a gaming component on top of all this. And so, people listening, damn, so a lot of stuff going on that doesn't pertain to the job market, but that's what Web3 is. That's what I love about it. It's not just pigeonholing ourselves into one product. It's the ability to focus on this central product, but also build out all of these experiences that are, tied in somewhat, not necessarily to the product, but to the community, and it keeps the community building with you.
So for people listening, if they or their kids want to get involved in Web3, what would you recommend as a first step?
First step is to literally get involved. Before getting involved in work, you have to get involved in Web3. And to do that, you jump on Twitter, you start following these projects, you start following the holders from those projects, you start joining Discords, you start chatting with people in those Discords, you ask questions to everybody. You ask questions to community members who have been there for a long time. You ask them to the moderators. You even ask them to the founding team if they're accessible. You just jump in and get going. Like, there's really nobody who's going to hold your hand throughout the process because we're so early. There's not any real kind of onboarding platforms at this point. It's just, you go on Twitter, you see communities you like, you find a project that maybe you like the art for, maybe you like the utility that they say they're going to build out, and you buy one. Provide value before asking for value is something that I always say. And the easiest way to do that is to just buy into the project. Because once you buy in, you get a different role in Discord, you change colors, and people can see that you're a holder, and they're more likely to talk to you and engage with you and answer anything you want. And at that point, just use the resources around you, because there's a lot of really smart people in this space. And there's also a lot of huge names, huge celebrities, DJs, athletes who are in these Discords, on Twitter, in these Twitter group chats, who are on the same playing field as you are. And so there's a lot to learn from these people, is kind of the point. So don't be shy. You just get in, get started, buy into the project, and then see where you fit in. If you are a music producer, start making promo sounds for the promo videos that the team's putting out. don't even ask them for a job or anything. Just put them out on Twitter and, share it with them. And, it'll probably get shared and, it'll find its way back to the team. If they like it, they might say, hey, let me pay you to do that next time. Or, if you're a graphic designer and you're wondering how the hell to get started, make some memes. Like, people get paid a lot of money to make memes on the internet because traditional marketing does not work in Web3. The community is too smart to fall for that crap. So you need something funny, something that can, kind of get over that hump of, oh, they're just trying to push product on me versus, oh, okay, like they're trying to engage and, add some value to my experience here. Moderating is a great entry level position, and it really is all encompassing to a lot of different roles in Web2. If you're in sales, if you're in business development, if you're in marketing, if you're in customer service, if you're in cashier, for instance, you can become a Discord moderator, get into these communities, buy into the project, show up for a couple weeks, and then make it known that you want to be a part of it. Ask for the opportunity. So that's the way it currently goes, right? If you're trying to work in Web3, you have to do that, which is very strenuous. And I'm speaking from the perspective of someone who is sociable and has the sales and marketing background and knows how to network and climb ladders, but a lot of people don't have that. And so that's a big reason why we are doing what we are doing, because even though I'm good at doing that, the majority of people out there, and to be able to gain mass adoption for this space, you need to bring these opportunities to people in a way more efficient manner. Imagine if you were trying to get a business development role or, an accounting role, and you had to go, buy something from the accounting firm and show up to their office in 7 days a week for 5 weeks straight and really engage with them and let them into your life. And that doesn't make any sense. All that just to get an entry level job application, which doesn't even guarantee that you're going to get the job. It doesn't make any sense. But in Web3, that's how it currently works. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. Is there's no need for all that. Let us find the opportunities. Let us bring in employers who are hiring and, put those opportunities in front of you so you can apply without having to go through all that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, you've got a big move coming up. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Moving to Auckland, New Zealand in about 5 weeks now, 5.5 weeks. So July 25th, I'm out of here and becoming a Kiwi.
And why? Why the move?
So my best friend, Jack, he was my college roommate and teammate at Boise State, Jack Heslin. He's a Kiwi. He lived with me for a bit after school, just for like a couple months there. And, since he moved to England for a couple of years and then ended up having to move back to New Zealand for some family things. And, obviously COVID started and we haven't been able to see each other for years. And so I had always had my eyes set on getting out of America, at least for a little bit now, and definitely permanently later on in life. And I was kind of toying around with a couple different areas and, really just want to see Jack, want to be able to be in the vicinity of my best friend and, collaborate on, business endeavors and, have fun and go out and do stuff. And so, once the borders opened up, after COVID kind of subsided there, we just pulled the trigger and we're like, hey, why don't I come out there for a year? I'll bring my dog, we'll get a flat together and, we'll live in Auckland for a few months. We'll go live in the South Island for a few months. We'll travel. We'll go do, different trips around the country. And just have a good time for a year. So I'm in the position to where, I can finally do that. I'm not locked into, a corporation that needs me in an office.
Right.
And I was even toying around with doing this while I was working remote for those tech companies I was working for. But this is going to make that way easier because now I'm the CEO of my own company and I'm working in an industry that is, very, very international. And going back to that original point of why we chose tree kangaroos, whereas, a big majority of, not a big majority, but a big portion of our community, they're in Australia and New Zealand. So, works out perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if people want to learn more about Root Troop or get involved with Root Troop, how can they find out?
Yeah, I would say you can go to roottroop.com, but we are redesigning the website because it doesn't really tell you much at this point. It was designed for our pre-launch, and we're in the process of getting it tailored to be more about our mission currently and in a more professional format. I would say join the Discord. That's the best place you can go. So discord.gg/roottroop. You can also go to Root Troop NFT on Twitter, and it'll have all the links for you. There's a link tree there with the Instagram, with the Discord, with the OpenSea, all that stuff. So, I definitely recommend joining the Discord first. That way, once you get in there, you can just ask all the questions you have. There's materials in there about everything you could ever wonder about the project, but also, our team of moderators in there are fantastic and armed with information and down to help out anybody who's interested. So
awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. I know you're busy and getting ready for this huge conference next week. So I really appreciate you taking time to chat with the Parenting Aces community. And again, we will have links to the Root Troop website, Discord, Twitter, Instagram in the show notes on parentingaces.com. So everyone be sure to check those out. And Morgan, it's just, I love checking in with you. I love having you share your experiences with the Parenting Aces community so that they can see what happens after tennis is done. This is stage next for you and you're killing it out there and we're really proud of you. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, for the kind words as always. So, you've been a huge supporter along the way, and I definitely credit some of my success to you and the support you've given me. It's been the same all my life, right? Whether it's tennis or music or sales or now NFTs, you're fully immersed in the world. You're in the Discord, you see all the tweets, the people I'm talking with, and you even ran our Twitter for, a month there. So, just really appreciate
the secret's out.
Yeah. So I really appreciate the love and support you continue to give me. It's essential to my growth and success.
Thank you. I love that. Thanks. To my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time on Parenting Aces.